Hi, everybody. This is Danny Dreyer, founder of ChiRunning, and I have a very special guest with me today. I'm doing an interview with her. She just completed 2,000 kilometer journey across Northern Europe, and to raise awareness for a topic that she will talk about in this interview. So her name is Tish Joyce, and she's an ultramarathoner. I'll let her tell you all about that too. So welcome, Tish. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Danny, and fantastic to speak to you. I've been a supporter and an avid practitioner of ChiRunning for 10 years now, so it's quite an honor to speak to you.
Yeah, it's I don't often get to speak to somebody who's been doing ChiRunning for 10 years either. So mostly newer people. So let me start just with some basic background. So where do you live, and how long have you been running?
Sure. Well, I live in West Yorkshire in England, so the north of England. Nice, just on the edge of the Dales, so lots of nice running territory. A lot hillier than the Baltic places I was in. It's quite flat. And I restarted running when I was 40, but when I was younger in school, I was always pretty good at cross country and ran for the county. So I think I had a natural ability, but fell away from it with the usual busy lives that we have, and restarted again just before my 40th.
Yeah. Oh, well, good for you. That's awesome. I didn't, I'd been running quite a bit my whole life, but I didn't really ever start competing or running ultras till I was 45.
Yeah, well, same, to be fair. I mean, it was the first half marathon I did was the October before my birthday, my 40th in May, which was cool. And I was so overjoyed when I finished the half marathon.
Oh yeah, and now look where you are. I mean, it's pretty amazing. So you've done lots of, I just read some articles about you, and you've done lots of ultramarathon running. So I just want to get kind of an idea of how that started, and just a little synopsis of your ultra running career, because there's a lot of runners that follow us.
Well, if I'm absolutely honest, I wouldn't really describe myself as an ultra runner.
Yeah.
So I did the half marathon the October before my 40th, 10 years ago. And I enjoyed that process so much, I decided I wanted to do something really big for my 40th. So I entered the Inca Trail Marathon, which is a pretty big marathon. It's high altitude and through a few mountain ranges. And I just loved the whole process of getting healthy for that. So I did that. I did one other marathon.
Where's the Inca Trail Marathon?
It actually finishes at Machu Picchu, so it's you run the Inca Trail.
It's very high.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing. It's completely amazing. So it was, most people do the Inca Trail in I think 3 days, 3.5 days, and we did it in 8 hours. So it's pretty cool. You
cool.
camp on the mountain the night before, and it starts off in freezing cold. So it was the adventure that I loved more than anything else, and the pushing yourself to the limits. And then after that, probably the next 3 or 4 years, I did another few marathons. But again, I fell away from getting healthy and everything really again, just the usual life challenges. And it wasn't until 2 years ago that I started really focusing on it again. So it was December 2000 and, get this right, 16. And I decided I wanted to do something different. I entered the, get that right, sorry, December 2015, so it was January 2017, 16, sorry. And I entered the Great Wall of China Marathon. So I had sort of between January and May to get myself fit again. I thought that would be sufficient enough time. Yeah, and that was great. That was good fun. But I'd already got in my mind that I could do the marathon, so it wasn't a big enough challenge for me really, and I was a little bit lazy in the training. I did it, but it wasn't quite enough. But I decided then I wanted to change and get really healthy, so I then entered the Marathon des Sables before I'd finished that, before I got to the Great Wall of China, and that was a real stretch point for me, because that was like, I'd thought about that a few years before and heard people doing it, and to me that was something that was just beyond the realms of anybody normal.
Give people kind of a brief description of the Marathon des Sables.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's billed as the toughest foot race on the planet, but being honest, there's quite a lot of hype about that, but it's
Sure.
tough. I mean, you basically run across the Sahara Desert for 7 days, carrying everything on your back, your food and everything that you need. But it is supported. You've obviously got water stops. And it's very basic. So you're living in a tent. It's not even a tent. It's a burger, just a sack over you, basically, lying with 7 smelly men at night with a, there's no space at all. So it's pretty rough. There's nothing nowhere to wash. You know, you have to cut your toothbrush down to a sort of an inch size because you're conscious of your weight and everything, and have to carry all your food. So it's pretty extreme. I think it's a sort of midlife crisis run for a lot of people. It makes them stop and think and rethink about their life, and it definitely was that for me. But I've only done around that another couple of ultramarathons because I don't particularly enjoy the racing element of it. It's more
Sure.
the adventure
Challenge.
and the pushing yourself. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
So I want to find out about the reason for doing this 2,000-kilometer run. So.
Well, that was the next step, really. Came back from the Marathon des Sables. It was the year before last, and finished in whenever it was, May. It was June, and I was sat in the. I'd actually taken the dogs for a run, and I have a T-shirt that says "Run the World." It was literally that simple. And everybody that had been on in the race was entering big marathons, and they were going to Costa Rica and here, and it's kind of becomes a bit of a process. You have to find the next, biggest run. It wasn't the run that I liked, it was the process of staying healthy and staying fit. And I knew I needed something that was the constant challenge. And I think also for me, it was the week before the Marathon des Sables, I'd gone to the desert and stayed with one of the chaps actually who's won it a number of times, Mohammed Hansel. And there was just me in the camp and him and some of the guys that worked there. So it was just an amazing experience, and I loved that solitary experience. It was actually better than the Marathon des Sables in some ways. So I just decided that was it, literally. I looked at my T-shirt and thought, I'm going to run the world. And I knew it was going to be something that was going to be significant, and I really didn't know how or what. So it's pretty amazing to be literally 12 months later and to have done the first phase of Run Europe, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and did you plan the whole route yourself? And it wasn't through an organized group or anything. It was just totally.
No, it's been 100% solo, unsupported. There's been, I've obviously had friends at the end of the phone a couple of times, but there's been no support really of through any organisations or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's mad. I mean, the amount of time and energy it's taken to plan and arrange was immense, but most of it was completely thrown in the air after about a week, because when you're actually there, you just have to deal with life as it comes. And that was the biggest lesson I've learned, really, is to stop trying to control things and just react and deal with it as they come. It was a good lesson.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what was the biggest thing you learned from the thing, and it sounds like you came away with a pretty good sense.
Yeah.
You can't control.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a program director. I've worked in change management all my life, and I plan. That's what I do. I set strategies and then plan the steps to achieve them. So this was totally against everything that I do, to actually have to throw the plan away and admit it didn't work, and just adapt on a daily basis. But it was a good lesson, very good lesson. Yeah.
Yeah, and so. At what point did you decide that what you wanted to try to show people or get people turned on to by doing this?
Yeah, and that's been an interesting one. So for Run to Work, which was the first one, which was from Amsterdam to Germany, one of my sons is autistic, so I did that for autism, and that felt right and good. I did the next stage for crisis for homeless people. But deep down, I knew that this was something more. There was something deeper than that I was trying to get across, and it was about me being as honest as I could be with myself and with the world. And domestic violence is an issue that's something that people just don't simply talk about. The Me Too campaign that's been going on recently has been great, because it started to get people to talk about sexual abuse, but you still don't hear people talking about domestic violence.
Yeah.
And I'm thankfully a survivor of. But people just do not talk about it. And when you think that a third of people worldwide, a third of women worldwide, are victims or survivors of domestic violence,
Yeah,
it's phenomenal. I mean, if you think
that's
what
a
that
huge
means in your,
number.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it wasn't necessarily about raising money. I mean, over the years, it's raised quite a lot of money through different adventures, and we have raised some money through this. It was just about having that conversation and getting people to understand that,
Hmm.
and also getting people who haven't experienced domestic violence to realize that it isn't necessarily weak people that are victims. So, you know, everyone's like, wow, you're amazing. Well, I'm also a survivor of domestic violence, but you may not have perceived domestic violence victims or survivors to be that kind of a strong person. So it's to try and get that message over too.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have an organization you relate to that's kind of central to it?
Yeah, I mean it's very UK related, so it's Women's Aid. So that's the main one that this is actually raising funds for. But as I say, it's a worldwide issue, so it's
Oh,
100%
absolutely.
worldwide issue. So,
Yeah.
and it's amazing the amount of conversations it has raised. So both with women and with men actually, which
Hmm.
has been fantastic. So, and I think
Yeah.
people have felt inspired by it. So it's and encouraged that they can get through things and get onto
Yeah.
a stronger way of life.
So did it come up through the process of your run, meeting people or talking about it, or was just kind of in the background?
It was more on social media, actually. There's a lot on social
Okay.
media. Well, I mean, that's one thing that didn't happen through this phase of the run, and I'll think about that more next time. So when I initially set it up, I was very keen on interacting with people, you know, in communities, etc., and that was my original plan. But to be quite frank, arranging and running and planning and doing the logistics of this solo, that was impossible. I mean, this was survival. So to arrange to actually go and do a talk in a school or something, which is what I'd originally thought, would have just been unfeasible. So I think to do that next time, it will have to be a different setup.
Yeah. Or, you know, you'll have a PR agent or somebody setting up all
Yeah,
that stuff, a
yeah,
communications department, a 10-year planning.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But no, it was great. I mean, it was always meant to be an evolution. So this, although I say there's been a lot of time spent planning, it's an evolving journey, and I'm sure as the rest of the continents evolve, it will evolve further.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember you wrote to me and you said you wanted to get men and women to challenge their boundaries and
Mm,
expectations about themselves, believe in themselves, dream big. So,
yeah.
um, how did that go throughout your run?
Amazing. I mean, and that's been really moving and really rewarding for me. It's been quite overwhelming, to be honest. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago we did this thing at work, and you had to describe how you would want to be described, and the first word I could think of where I wanted to give back was to inspire people. And the amount
Yeah,
of people that have used that word has been quite phenomenal. And it isn't an egotistical thing. If people really mean it when they use the word I've been inspired, then that to me means they're taking action to do something positive in their lives. And that's a fantastic feeling. So it's been huge, really. I mean, quite a significant reach well out of the people I know and friends I know. There's been quite a big connectivity on the social media. So there's
that's great.
positives and negatives of social media, but yeah, it seems to be having an impact. So that's really good.
Yeah, and it's, you know, I hear what you're saying, and it's also not egotistical to take on a role of kind of like a hero or a leader or somebody willing to stick their neck way out there so other people can see that I'm just a normal person doing
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
You
exactly.
can too, you know, that kind of thing.
That's exactly the point. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it seems to be having an impact. What I'm trying to think now is how you actually harness that and harness that energy, and that's how things need to evolve further as we move on.
Yes, yes, and how you can direct it, or you know, there's so many ways you can involve other people
Yeah,
that do a similar thing that you just did, and maybe collectively share their experiences and the
yeah,
circumstances.
exactly, exactly. So the brain's ticking away on that, most definitely, most definitely.
Good, good. So I wanted to also spend just a little bit of time just asking about the actual thing you just did, like
Mm,
how all the parts around it. So I have a bunch of questions around
yeah,
that.
sure.
Because people are curious. What drives people to run 2,000 kilometers? And a lot of other questions come up as around that, because when people can't wrap their head around what goes on inside of somebody that's out there 1,500 kilometers into your event, knowing you still have 500 more to go, what goes on through your head? So I have all the questions that would come up inside of my head and have come up. You know, I've done a couple of 100-milers, and that was like, I'm a retired 100-miler now.
But for me, you see, that's crazy, because I do a run and then I stop. I don't keep going for 100 miles. At least I sleep at some point.
Yeah, that's true. You get to stop. So your total mileage was 2,080 some?
Yeah, 2,085 kilometers, yeah.
85. And so I'm curious, because you said you've been a ChiRunner for 10 years. So when you were out there in the middle of this whole thing and really wondering, you know, is this a good choice? You know, when it got either physically tough or emotionally tough, were there anything specific to your ChiRunning technique or focuses that could help you through some of the tough spots? I'm just curious.
Genuinely and honestly, hugely on a daily basis, yeah. So some of the most simple things were basically lift your feet up, just lift your feet up. So that was the most simple thing, and to lean. So, you know, the two simple things: lift your feet up, or lean and lift your feet up. Preferably in that order. And that totally relaxed me each time. So that was a huge thing. I think the breathing actually is also a huge thing. I've always struggled with breathing, and still do. You know, Chi running is a process, and learning and getting better and better. And even when I went through the classes, breathing was always something. It's a conscious thing, I think, that was a challenge. So it was a real focus for me whilst I was running. And sometimes I'd stop and I'd walk and I'd breathe, and that would also be hugely helpful. But some of the best things were actually before and after, as well as. So for me, you know, the leg raises and the body looseness beforehand made a massive difference. So pretty,
so good to hear.
Yeah, religious about leg raises and some of the after. You know, your simple little video. I think there's 5 little things on there that every night. Not every night, but 95% of the times I would be doing that. But body looseness beforehand. And the difference they made was huge, particularly on my ankles. So that level of stress on your feet, you are going to get some stress. But I can genuinely say I had 2 blisters. They only happened on the day of the rain, so I got completely drenched, and they disappeared. Yeah, they disappeared completely. Didn't need anything to do. I didn't have any injuries whatsoever, any muscle ache, anything whatsoever. Amazing. And I'm 100% convinced that's ChiRunning, like in every way. I mean, I did self-massage, but the other thing that ChiRunning really helps me with, and which is why it works for me, is the education. So I used to use, I don't so much now, because in the back of the first book, I'm not sure if it is in the later ones, there's like a sort of a problem guide. If you've got a problem with this, what to use, and that was my Bible forever. I mean, it's ChiRunning book still on my thing there. So every time anything would happen, so I think I got some bit of tendonitis on my right foot at one point from, obviously, again, this is massive overuse. So I iced it and I stretched it and I used the changed my laces and did a few things, but all the time I was thinking about what I could apply from what I'd learned and how I could fix and heal myself, as opposed to thinking that this was, you know, an inevitable problem of running. So a lot of people run and they assume that they're going to get injured. Through ChiRunning and that process, the biggest thing that's taught me is that it's not an inevitable process to get injured. But you will have problems. Yeah,
I'm curious too that how your conditioning level changed over the process. And if you really noticed it, or
definitely. So my core got much better. My core was pretty strong, but nowhere near as strong as it is now. And in the only cramp I got actually was in my groin here, not my groin, my lower stomach muscles in the first week. I got a couple of little cramps there, and that could have been partly because of the bag as well. But I think it was as much because I was using my core more and for longer doing the distances. And my legs are definitely a lot tougher than they were, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, I actually feel healthier than I think I've ever felt. I don't feel particularly exhausted. I mean, if you were following, quite a few people were following on the blog, and they were like, how can you look like that at the end of like 70 kilometers? But I was genuinely energized at the end of the runs because I was ChiRunning. It's genuinely as simple as that. And I contacted you about this before I started, because I wanted people to genuinely see how good it is. I've seen too many friends get injured, and now I'm part of that ultra running community. It's like it's an inevitability, and it really isn't. It doesn't need to be an inevitability.
Yeah, no, you're such a good model for that, and it's awesome. And I'm not sure if you know it now, but in the last couple of years, I've developed a whole series of video and audio things that you can get on your phone.
Yeah, I actually have the little post-run exercise on my phone, because it just is a prompt.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Great.
So that's awesome to hear. And so I do have one question. It's like what was the scariest thing that happened to you when you were out there?
One of the scariest things was actually running down the motorway in Germany, because into traffic, so into trucks. There was no other way, and the road to Hamburg, that was the only way I could do it. And that was like, at some points I was like, Tish, you've got to really figure out if this is a safe thing to do or not. And I wasn't going to give in. And I was thinking, the police are going to come and get me. They're going to take me away. How am I going to make up these steps? Because the massive thing for me was that I ran every step of the way. And there was no gap in that process. So that was pretty scary. And another thing, which is a silly thing, was there was one day I was in Germany still, actually, at that point. And I'd run along the coast for a long time, and it was a late night. I think I'd done about 68K or something that day, and I was pretty tired. I'd seen the sun going down, and the path on Google Maps was telling me this would carry on, and it didn't. And it got to the end of the path, and I had to run into this. I had two choices: to either run all the way back along the coast, which would have been another 20K, and then figure another route out, or jump into the sea. Or basically run into this pitch black forest. And I was so tired and so exhausted that my confidence levels, or whatever they weren't that high, and I was petrified about running into this forest, which was just totally pitch black. I had my head torch, and I've run in the dark before, but I just didn't want to do this at all, and I just had to go for it and do it. I mean, one of the amazing things
so you did it anyway. You went ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And
did your GPS show you that there was going to be a road on the other side of this thing? Or?
Well, the other problem in Germany was the GPS kept failing through battery power, because it's a whole extra story on navigation. It was a nightmare, to be quite honest, until I got on some of the coastal paths. So I couldn't have it on all of the time. You had to make assumptions and sort of go. I had my InReach Explorer, so I used the compass, and that was how you had to go. But yeah, that was pretty scary. But I think one thing that's worth mentioning is, as well as before I left, talking about scary, before I left, a lot of people, family and friends, were really seriously worried about me. A female going out and doing this on your own through all these countries and forests and remote places. There wasn't one single instance of any human being in any way remotely scary or complex or difficult, which just goes to prove that we all think that people generally are going to come and harm us. They're not, actually. And again, it comes back to the fact of the run. Most people actually get into those kind of difficulties, the people generally human beings are quite nice people, and and everyone was so welcoming. There was nothing at all. There was fears going into forests or running down motorways and things like that, but not through any people fears at all.
Not with people. Yeah, that's amazing. I got to be in Germany earlier this year and had a
Okay.
great time. Loved it. I was in Freiburg down in southwestern Germany, but
Yeah, lovely. Yeah.
loved it there. It was
Yeah.
the coolest
And some of
place.
the places in Latvia and Switzerland and Lithuania were just it was amazing. Every country was different, and the challenges were different, and the people were different, and it was quite something, I have to say, to be going through different countries and seeing the
Oh
changes as
my gosh,
you
yeah,
went. Incredible.
yeah. It's really amazing that you know that people think that it's such a dangerous thing, and yeah, it has its hazards, but part of it's you know, a lot of trust
Yeah.
and a lot of attitude as well. It's the invisible ingredients that are sometimes just as powerful as what you're running through.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you were saying earlier about sort of, you know, lessons learned as well. And I think I've learned so much on that run from a personal perspective. It's
Sure.
quite phenomenal, really. I'm still processing it, to be honest. I haven't been back very long yet, so.
Did you keep a journal of
Yeah, I did. I mean, I intend to really write a book on this actually, and the
oh,
overall experience, because it's not just about the running, to be honest. I think it's
no.
about women and empowerment and age. You know, a 50 thing, pushing our boundaries at 50, um, in lots of different ways. It was a very meditative process. So, you know, for 6 weeks I barely spoke to anybody because a lot of the time you were running, there was nobody about. I'd go for days and days in Germany and Latvia, and I might see one or two people.
Yeah, did people run with you that knew you were passing through or that were
Well,
following
it
you?
wasn't, unfortunately not. No, we didn't. That's what I would like to plan for
Yeah,
next time, but it
yeah,
wasn't that situation this time. I
yeah,
wasn't able to do that level of local PR as I was going. I was
yeah.
trying to find out where to get food and water.
Food and water. Yeah. Because
Yeah,
speaking of food, I was curious about if your fueling changes, if your fueling changed your pattern of your,
completely. Yeah. I mean, I
yeah.
don't
So
like
I'm
to run
curious
after
about that.
eating. Yeah, I don't like to run after eating. I like to run on an empty stomach. So that's
Me too.
normally
Yeah,
what I do.
exactly.
I couldn't do that because often there would be no access to food through the day
Mhm.
at all. So maybe 30–40% of the time I'd have to eat breakfast and eat a big breakfast and then head out after that big breakfast. Sometimes I'd go back to sleep for an hour, but I couldn't afford to leave it for longer than that.
Yeah.
Other times there were times when I literally ran a marathon, um, found somewhere, restaurant, went in, had a 2-course meal in my running clothes, went back out and had to run another 15K to get to my end destination point because there was no other way to do it, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I'd know when I got there there'd be nothing to eat, and there'd also be no breakfast the following morning. So I had to make sure I was fueled properly to do that. But
Yeah.
again, I didn't have any sickness. I didn't have any stomach problems. My body just adapted really, really well.
That's really amazing. That is really
Incredible.
good.
I tried to eat as much real food as possible,
Yeah.
and I carried nuts and raisins and dates where I could get them around with me for the daytime. But um, yeah, it was very varied depending on what was available, to be quite honest.
Yeah. So you didn't have people, you didn't ship packages ahead of time or anything. It was,
Oh yeah, I'd planned all that. I had a
oh, you did.
brilliant rota. I'd packed everything up for a weekly drop bag and all this great expedition food and protein shakes. It failed after the first week. So all my planning, I had a little mini toothpaste and everything, complete disaster, and didn't work because my route was changing. The postal services that we were using, we tried that many. I would have to wait a day or 2 days, and I just gave up on it. I thought I'll just cope and deal with it, and that was the best decision I made. Actually, was
Yeah.
just to adapt as I went, and that was when I had to figure out after week 2, just stop trying to control it and adapt, and it was good.
It's amazing amount of letting go,
Yeah,
especially when you're already out there in the middle of nowhere and
yeah.
you just go, well, you know what? We're going to just up it a little and just totally like
Yeah, but it
feed.
was the best thing. It really was, and to actually stop thinking of this as an ultra marathon, that was a
Yeah.
big thing. I had to start thinking of this as my life,
Yeah.
and to stop thinking of it as 2,000 kilometers. It's 15 minutes. So run for 15 minutes, and then run for 15 minutes, and then another thing was being kind to myself because I had 1 or 2 days when I was beating myself up a bit because I was walking too much or I was
Yeah.
feeling negative. Um, And I had to turn that around really, really quickly and realize, you know, you need to be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
You're doing a good thing here. So if I ran for 15 minutes, I'd praise myself for running for 15 minutes and literally get into that mentality. And then I'd run for the whole day the next day and it would be perfect. So it's
Yeah,
amazing how that makes a difference.
yeah, I think people don't realize that people who run really long distances, the physical challenge isn't usually as hard as the mental challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's 100% the mental, well, 95% the mental
Yeah.
challenge.
95. Yeah.
Completely, at least.
So I'm curious. So you might not do it this way, but I kind of divide my life up into physical, emotional, mental, spiritual
Mm.
levels. You know,
Hmm.
everything I
Yeah.
interact with, I work with things all in different levels. So I'm just curious what life lessons you learned on any of
Mm.
or all of those levels. So if you want to do physical, what physical lessons did you learn that you would keep with you forever? What emotion, how did you learn um, on any of
Mm.
those levels? I'm just curious because you had such a classroom.
Yeah.
What
I
an
mean,
opportunity.
completely. And I've been absolutely honest. I'm literally within my 48-hour back of walking into my home and thinking, why do I have so much stuff? So one of the big one of the big lessons is I don't need so much stuff, you know. We don't need so much stuff. We spend our lives gathering and accumulating
Oh my
stuff.
God.
And I love my home and I love my memories and every item I can remember where I bought it and what
Yeah.
the memory is or what the children did with it or whatever. But I've already, I mean, literally yesterday was my first day at home. I've cleared off 3 bookshelves and I've taken a carload full of books. Not all of them, but I'll keep some of
Yeah.
them. But
No.
the house is just full of books, and I love books, but I don't need every book I've ever had.
Yeah.
And it's a silly thing, but actually,
Oh, it's not silly.
it's
It's
not even
totally.
clutter. It's just, and it's not even about going completely minimalist. It's about
No.
just keep the things you want. And then I went to the cupboard in the bathroom and it's all of this stuff, you know, how many bottles of shampoo and creams and potions. I've had nothing. I have nothing to wash my face. I've had coconut oil and I've had magnesium oil. And that's pretty much it. And Vaseline for my feet.
That's about all you need.
Yeah.
And those are two
Yeah.
good choices, you know.
And everybody's like, wow, you look so young, you look so better than you did. And then I'm thinking, well, why do I need all of these potions and lotions? And, you know, so minimizing and reducing. And it's also, it's peace, to be honest. So I had
Yeah.
so much time alone and quiet time. And sometimes we just fill our lives with noise, with the radio, with music. And I love music again, but I'm trying to be more silent and well, not trying. I actually need now to be more silent.
You crave it. And yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well,
On a spiritual level, I suppose I've spiritual emotional level, but I realized just how much I actually love myself, and I've dealt with all my demons, and that was a really fantastic thing to feel. So you know, only 2 years ago, I can remember going out in the dark in the desert on my own for a run, and all of this emotional outpouring came out, and there was still a lot left there to deal with, and all that's gone. So that was a really huge moment for me to realize that was I was really comfortable in my own company and had dealt with a lot of that, which was pretty amazing actually.
yeah, when you know, a lot of people who don't do these long distances or events, it's not just running, any kind
Yeah,
of event that gets you out there and just they don't realize that when you're out there for that long and doing that much, how raw you become.
yeah,
It completely breaks down your filters,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and whatever comes up, that's what you are, and you
Yeah,
see that, and you either and you just see it, you accept it, you can work with it, drop it by the side of the road and
yeah,
move on, or you know, but it is such an amazing kind of therapeutic thing that,
completely.
but it takes, you can see what it takes to do that. Most people would rather just pay some money, go to a therapist and hope for the
Yeah,
best, you know,
yeah.
but this is this is really kind of trial by fire, you know, you're just cutting through the middle of it.
Yeah, I mean, I could not recommend, forget people who want to run or not, but just as you say, it's not about running. Just go and spend time in nature and spend time
Yeah,
alone. I think that's, people don't spend enough time alone. I think we all feel the need to be with people all the time
yeah,
and Being alone is a good thing. It's a really, really good
It's a
thing.
really good thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have my own meditation practice. So even on a busy day, I can always go, you know what? I'll sit
Yeah.
30 minutes.
Yeah, and I'm one of these who struggled with the structured meditation, but I've
Yeah.
always said running is my meditation, and this was the perfect world of it, of it basically. But yeah, it was amazing. I mean, amazing in so many ways. I mean, so much so I'm going to sell my house. I'm downsizing. I'm getting
Yeah.
rid of all the stuff that I don't need and focusing on
Oh,
the more
that
important.
is so cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So just reducing baggage all around
Yeah, absolutely.
on every
People are
level.
saying, just hang on, Tish, don't go and get a bivouac in the woods. My family is slightly concerned of my mental state, I think.
What's so funny is that you're concerned about theirs because that's
Yeah,
where they're still in that. You know what I mean?
well, it's true, yeah. You really do realize what's important, and you realize how much we clutter our lives up with such non-important stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's, you shape your lives around what you feel is important.
Mm.
And what you choose is important, that's where people make their choices. And, if you really make your choices from a deeper sense of quality of life,
Mm.
most people wouldn't make the choices they do.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. But I
yeah,
think we have this idea we have to go through this process, and this midlife crisis concept that we all have, and people tell us we're going through, the media and everything. And I came up with this cool term, I think it's called growing younger. And I realized the things that I wanted to do as a kid, I still want to do. I still want to write more. I still want to paint more, and I'm just going to do it. And you can do it because all of the time we spend working to build all this stuff around us, all we're actually doing then is waiting until we're old enough to stop working to do the stuff we wanted to do as a kid. So no, it's good. It's
yeah, everybody's biggest goal, whether they know it or not, is to really be comfortable in their own skin,
yeah,
you know. And however you get there, it all comes down to honesty, you know.
yeah.
And,
Absolutely, yeah. And I didn't answer your question properly before, but when you were asking me about the how I came to choose the um, women's aid and domestic abuse, it was about being honest. It was about me being able to publicly say and say in work that I am a victim and a survivor of domestic violence. And that was quite a big thing, and on LinkedIn, and I've got quite a good career, so it's to actually, people don't talk about those things in a career environment, in a
yeah,
working environment, that I in my environments anyway.
yeah,
And now it's been all on the intranet and work, and everybody's talking about it. And it was quite strange walking into work the first time when you knew that now you didn't have that other identity.
yeah,
But it's great to just have the one identity now, and it's quite a huge release. It's like taking off your work clothes, and that's it. You are that person. It's
yeah,
great.
yeah. And the world adjusts to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
Well, I see your cat running in the window there behind
Yeah.
you.
Oh, well, the dogs will come and jump on him in a minute. The cat, yeah, he doesn't like the dogs, sadly.
Yeah. Well, Tish, it's been really wonderful talking with you and speaking to somebody who really does appreciate um, themselves enough, and from what you've been through, how you got yourself to where you are. And it's so funny because everybody thinks you need to be, monetarily successful in this world,
Mm.
and you know, and it's really not what it's about.
No, not at all.
That stuff can be there, but if that's your goal, it's pretty limited.
Yeah,
And so it's really nice to see you having gone out and challenged yourself and just go for it, to drop everything, throw yourself into the into the stream of life, and
yeah,
to really come out more whole than you were when you started. It's so cool.
yeah. No, and I really, really do appreciate talking to you, Danny. As I say, I've been an avid. Any single person that knows me knows how much I've gone on about ChiRunning for 10 years. In fact, I should mention my mother, who's 82. So she still has the Chi Walking book on her living room table, and she's had it there for 9 years. So, and she Chi walks every day. So it's great. She goes out and does a 3-mile walk every day, and she's faster than me.
She's faster than you. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, so thank you a lot, and
Yeah.
I wish
Thank
you
you,
all
Danny.
the best with all your future things that you're going to, challenges and everything else you got planned.
Great. Thank you, Danny. Really good to
Thank
talk
you.
to you.
Yeah,
Take care.
take care.
Bye.